Hello, my name is Lauren, and I am going to present to you my career culture. I would like to start by telling you about my future career aspirations. So, before I dive into slide one, I will tell you that my aspiration is to work in educational programming for a nonprofit in my city. This relates to the information I learned in this course in a whole lot of ways, which I will explain as we move through the slides. So slide one here focuses on our first topic, which was types of learners and the hidden curriculum. The nonprofit museum or attraction where I work will promote a feeling of inclusiveness for every child. Equality will be the focus. Now, when working at a nonprofit such as a museum, a zoo, or an art museum, I will be servicing a wide variety of learners with an educational experience. And therefore, the hidden curriculum should definitely be one of inclusivity and acceptance. The aim of educational programming in nonprofits is to grow interest in students, helping them realize their academic potential. So this means that we're trying to grow interest in topics that students may not get to spend a lot of time on in the classroom, but they get to experience it by going on field trips to these sorts of institutions. The types of learners could include handicapped students, non-English speaking immigrants, and other diverse cultural backgrounds. And that's what makes it important to cater to all types of learners, because everyone deserves the opportunity to learn in this type of environment. To quote one of our readings, Herb Childress says, "We are better than our systems. We are better than our structures. We can be brave, help our kids discover who they are, help them go where they want to go, and wish them Godspeed as they leave us." And this, in my opinion, perfectly encapsulates the necessity to promote a hidden curriculum that does not have rigid expectations. Instead, it is flexible to the needs of the children who are learning within it. The next topic we covered was material culture and environment layout. The way that I choose to set up a learning area at a nonprofit will be essential. I will construct an environment that appeals to learners of all types and abilities. This place will be accessible to all and maximize the potential of the space. One wonderful thing about working at a non-for-profit as opposed to in a traditional classroom is that a museum or a zoo or anything else of that sort will likely have more space to utilize as well as more budget through the donations of generous sponsors and other donors. So it is really important to utilize that space and money well. In our readings, Weigel stated, an instructional focus area should also be designed with the comfort and attention of the children in mind. They're going to be gathered in that area frequently. First and foremost, kids must be able to see as well as hear. So this means that children should have space to move, and in places where they are stationary, they should have comfortable seating. Kids obviously don't learn as well when they're sitting in hard wooden desks with wooden chairs. We want to make sure that everything that is in a museum or exhibit is visible to children, is comfortable, is able to be listened to or touched or felt in ways that they find best to learn. Areas should be open to make them accessible to all children, but also easy for parents and staff to supervise their children. The materials should be sized for the people using them, in this case, children. Putting everything in easy reach with well-organized storage makes a huge difference. Through the environment they are learning in, children learn about themselves as well. As Tittman explained in our readings, place identity is heavily influenced by the social meanings that are attached to spaces and places by other people, and these are influential in forming the lenses through which children later recognize, evaluate, and manipulate physical spaces and places. On slide 3, we address closing the achievement gap. The environment I provide for students will educate all at the same level with the same expectations of success. My goal will be achievement regardless of race, gender, or socioeconomic class. This really means that closing the achievement gap requires efforts from all educators. The opportunities afforded to students from certain races or socioeconomic backgrounds support the chance to succeed should be the same across the board. That means students in wealthy districts, students in poor districts, students in rural districts, students in city schools. They should all have the same opportunity to visit these locations and garner the information that they can from them. This may mean subsidizing entrance fees at such institutions for low-income schools to give those students the same opportunities for success as higher-income schools. In our readings, Edelman explains that poor children, often children of color, are currently taught at higher rates by inexperienced, unqualified, or out-of-field teachers and provided far fewer resources than their wealthier peers. Our responsibility now is to ensure that these children who are left behind truly benefit from these protections. What I found also is that, in fact, it is children from low-income backgrounds who can benefit the most from these opportunities. Borg and Stranahan found that children in fourth grade who had been receiving the benefits of increased school funding had higher test scores, and that it was the lowest scoring students who had improved the most. So as educators, we must also remember to expect the same out of all of the children we come into contact with. We cannot make assumptions about a child's ability to learn based on their socioeconomic status or test scores. This does them a great disservice. Slide 4 addresses cultural conflict. My educational environment will not cause students to feel misunderstood or judged based on assumptions about their culture. As an educator, I want to construct an environment where all students' backgrounds are valued and looked at as contributions to the community culture. So if a child is encouraged and told that they can achieve, they will strive to achieve. However, if a child is stereotyped by their race or culture, and that stereotype is that they will fail, become criminals, or a drain on society, then they are more likely to fulfill that assumption. Alexi explains her background and explains, "We were Indian children who were expected to be stupid. Most lived up to those expectations inside the classroom, but subverted them on the outside." So what this means is that I, as someone who is going to deal with a lot of different types of children and students and needs, I have to have the same expectations and standards for all of them. And teachers should do the same. If we don't maintain the high standards for these kids and we set the bar low, then they will not have a bar to rise to. I will also work on creating opportunities for self-discovery for students. In our readings, Vetter speaks of an educator she observed in a classroom who used strategies, created curricula, and negotiated assignments that provided opportunities for students to make sense of themselves and the world around them. The better the students can understand themselves and their cultures, the better they will become at fighting off misrepresentations. A nonprofit is also not under the same restraints as a school district when it comes to addressing cultural conflict. So this is a great opportunity to really go off text, right? To kind of do things that are a little riskier, address topics that maybe aren't totally safe in the classroom. It's an opportunity for us to really reach and inspire critical thinking about culture. Popular culture in learning environments is our next topic. As an educator, it is crucial that I am aware of themes reflected in popular culture and find strategic ways to respond in the educational environment. This is something that I think is really fun as an educator, as someone who would be planning programming for children, is finding ways to use pop culture to draw them in and keep them interested. Working in a nonprofit and planning educational programming will make it important for me to be aware of popular culture and keep activities and environment up to date and culturally conscious. Teaching culture in a current manner can be assisted by using media in a deliberate way. Fishman explains in our readings that combining education with the media often suggests teachers using newspapers, radio, TV, comics, and cartoons in the classroom. But another way of looking at that combination includes interrogating the important role that the mass media have in reporting and disseminating information. Pop culture can be used by educators to build relationships with students and reach their learning potential. Teach Thought reminds us how teachers can build relationships with children through pop culture. Meeting students where their interests lie allows educators to better communicate with their pupils, Students who aren't interested in discussing historical details are likely to open up quickly when you mention a popular YouTube video or sports team. This can definitely be done in a learning environment such as the zoo or even the science center. If you're going to do an exhibit on velocity or on speed, you could definitely use a football player, a popular sports team to really illustrate for kids and get them interested in scientific topics. This final slide addresses cultural responsiveness. Children of all races, cultures, and backgrounds should feel as though they matter and are represented. Addressing cultural issues directly rather than ignoring them is a fundamental part of cultural responsiveness. So as an educator in a nonprofit, I will need to be prepared for the diversity of the students I will encounter and for discussions of issues that are important to the child and their feelings of either isolation or belonging in the community. It is important for educators to seek continuing education in diversity and culture. In our readings, Gay outlines proper preparation as A, knowing which ethnic groups give priority to communal living and cooperative problem solving and how these preferences affect educational motivation, aspiration, and task performance. B, how different ethnic groups' protocols of appropriate ways for children to interact with adults are exhibited in instructional settings. And C, the implications of gender role socialization in different ethnic groups for implementing equity initiatives in classroom instruction. So knowing this information really helps the teacher, or in this situation, me, an educational programmer, build relationships with children and find an understanding that is deeper than simply their classroom performance or just basic information. Racism is also a reality in today's culture, and it must be directly addressed. Sleater, in our readings, describes the importance of this as simply infusing representation of racially and ethnically diverse people into curriculum only marginally affects students' attitudes, because racial attitudes are acquired actively rather than passively. Curricula that teach directly about racism have a stronger positive impact than curricula that portray diverse groups but ignore racism. So as educators, we have that opportunity to mold the attitudes of future generations and improve race relations. If you aren't totally comfortable with doing this as an educator, there are so many resources that will help you mold their curriculum or the learning environment to one that respectfully and directly addresses these issues. In conclusion, I want to thank you for listening to my presentation. And I hope that by taking into account all important aspects of cultures that we discuss in this class, I can make my learning environment a positive experience to students of all backgrounds, abilities, and potential.